Thank you for staying with us for this conversation. And before we begin, I'd like to introduce our speakers this evening. So unfortunately, Laura Nix, who is the director of the film, couldn't join us, but we are very grateful that the film's co-producer, Claire Chandler, is with us to share her insights. Hello. Hi, Claire. Claire is a New York-based documentary producer and editor who has worked on numerous acclaimed films, including collaborations with director Nancy Bruschi, such as Crime on the Bayou and The Rape of Recy Taylor. She's also worked on Desperate Souls, Dark City, and The Legend of Midnight Cowboy, which was shortlisted for the Best Documentary Academy Award. She has also worked closely with Laura Nix on several projects, bringing her deep perspective on the film and its themes. Thank you, Claire. And we're also honored to welcome Ann Telnaes, who you saw in the film. So Ann creates editorial cartoons in various mediums: animation, visual essays, live sketches, and traditional print. She worked for the Washington Post from 2008 to 2025 and won the Pulitzer Prize for Illustrated Reporting and Commentary in 2025 and in 2001, and the National Cartoonist Society's Reuben for Outstanding Cartoonist of the Year for 2016. In 2023, Anne won the Herb Block Prize, named after the legendary editorial cartoonist Herb Block. And we were lucky to see all the cartoons in the film tonight that are absolutely amazing. I have to say that it's really... Thank you. And moderating tonight's conversation is Mark Maxey, who is here in the room. Mark is an Emmy Award-winning producer and executive at Rolling Pictures. Mark has produced and developed numerous films and television projects across major networks and studios, and he's also deeply engaged in the industry through leadership roles with Producers Guild of America and the Television Academy. Some of you may know his recent film, Words of War, about Russian journalist Anna Politkovskaya, a story that powerfully highlights the role of a free press in confronting authoritarian regimes. That's a co-production with Champagne that we will show in May, and thank you very much. So, Mark, I leave the floor to you.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. Thank all of you for being here. I don't know if our remote participants can see that there's a full house here that's enjoyed your film, but thank you so much for sharing such a timely and powerful story with us. I feel like this film should be required viewing for every registered voter before the midterms and the next election. I guess on that note, maybe Claire, I'll start with you. This film comes at a time when democratic norms and just the traditions that have kept us free are being eroded and challenged in ways that are unprecedented, which is a word that I think is used much too often these days, but sadly applies. So as a filmmaker, making this kind of a story and releasing it in this type of a political climate, what were the challenges you faced, and are you concerned that perhaps the film industry that you're trying to release the film into is controlled by some of these billionaires that are enabling the subject of the story that you're trying to tell?
Yeah, that's a great question. And can you guys hear me okay? Just making sure the Zoom is functional. Good? Okay, great. First of all, thank you everyone for being there in person to see this film tonight. We really appreciate you being there and supporting the film. When we shot the film, it was in 2024 in the spring before the election, right? So it was a very different world, and a lot of the experts that we spoke to understood the gravity of what could happen, but it was hypothetical-ish. Obviously you see many of the things that eroded during the first administration. But obviously, it's been a very long year, and a lot of things have escalated faster than I think many people expected. It's a very different time. But I think the core lessons that the experts in the film had to share about the structural reasons we are here and why what's happening now is part of a larger system of challenges that's been with this country since the beginning. This is sort of like stage 4 metastasis, right? But it's been evolving for a long time in different ways. So I think that, it's definitely a challenging time for everyone who is paying attention to our democracy. In terms of the film specifically, independent documentaries are never, super easy to release, but we definitely have had some challenges because of the political climate. The film was supported and funded by a bunch of amazing producers in Europe. So it was a European production. They commissioned the film and it showed in Germany and in France and 14 other territories in Europe and had a great run, had won some awards, large viewership there. Unfortunately, we were not able to find a broadcaster in the States. Laura Nix's films had previously shown on PBS or with other national distribution platforms, and that was not an option here. So we are actually launching the film through kinema.com, which is a sort of a platform that a lot of filmmakers are migrating to, which allows you to do a self-distribution push. So we're actually going to be powering the film through connecting with local groups, national groups, local groups, everything from book clubs to churches to national organizations that are pro-democracy in various ways to try to get the film to as many people as possible. That's our goal. So sort of a different plan than we've had previously, but we're going to try to use any interest in the film to try to build momentum and do it that way. And Laura wishes she could be here tonight. Unfortunately, she's not feeling well, but she sends her regrets, and I'll do my best to communicate everything she wanted me to share with you all.
Thank you for that. Yeah, you have a room full of people that I think will help get the word out when the film's available in May. So, excited to see where that goes. And for you, at the end of the film, it was kind of the reveal that after your storied 17-year award-winning career with the Washington Post, you chose to leave, and that's such a huge decision to make. So I wanted to get, in your words, your thoughts around kind of what led up to that. Editors have always exercised some sort of judgment or control over content, but at what point does editorial judgment cross over into censorship, and why was crossing that line something that you felt so strongly about not doing, that you were willing to make such a big change in your career to stand on principle, that you didn't want to be censored in that way by the Washington Post? Oh, Ann, we don't hear you. I'm so sorry. You're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was me.
Right.
So sorry. As you said, every editorial cartoonist is edited. We're used to that. That's not anything new. This was a different situation for me. I mean, I had been working, as you said, for the Washington Post for 17 years. And in all that time, I had always chosen my topic. I wasn't given topics, by the editor. So in this case, as you said, it was a cartoon. I don't think anybody showed it, but it was a cartoon about after Trump won re-election, that all the billionaire newspaper owners basically went down to Mar-a-Lago on bended knee to make sure that they were in his good graces, because they had government contracts and they had other financial concerns. And I had actually just been reading about it in the Washington Post. They did a story about it, so I decided to do a cartoon. So it was quite a surprise to me when it came back from the editorial page editor, who has to approve all the ideas for the editorial cartoons, not just me, but the other ones as well. Usually when I got feedback from an editorial cartoon, it was either, oh, it's not very clear, or, could you rework it a little bit? But never was I told I couldn't do the subject matter, and all that came back was no. which was a surprise to me. So I had not thought about quitting at that point. Trump had just won re-election. I was tired after going through his first administration, but I was determined, as most editorial cartoonists are, to just, do my best work for the next 4 years. So I had not planned to quit, but I knew as soon as I heard that, if I was going to be controlled that way, that I couldn't speak my mind, that I would have to make a decision. So I made a decision fairly quickly, and I quit. I frankly had no idea of the response that would come of it. I honestly thought my editorial cartooning career was over. So it's been quite a year, to say the very least.
I applaud you for the bravery that took. I think making that kind of a decision on principle and for the reasons that you did takes great courage. So I just want to say, kudos to you, and I'm really proud of that. I'd like to follow that then just with Ann. Since leaving the Post, you've joined our friend Jim Acosta and Joy Reid and others on Substack. So I just wanted to share, or give you an opportunity to share with people, where can we go see your work if we're not seeing it in the Post anymore? Where should we be looking for you?
Yeah, as you said, it's on Substack. It's actually called Open Windows because it started out as a personal Substack that I was actually trying to do an idea for an animated short. But then as soon as Trump jumped into the race again, I decided to start showing cartoons. So, and then of course, when the reaction came back, a couple of my colleagues suggested that I turn on subscriptions, paid subscriptions, which, it's actually been really great. Now, granted, it's not the platform of the Washington Post, obviously, but I do reach quite a few people. And Substack, while we don't know, what the future is with it, it's working out not just well for me, but for other people, as you said. So yeah, I think it's definitely a viable place for editorial cartoonists and journalists that have decided to leave for whatever reason, their regular, mainstream media perch.
Brilliant. Claire, filmmaking and editorial cartoons are both forms of storytelling that challenges power and has the potential to educate and influence and change hearts and minds, or at least spark conversations. With this type of a story coming out, at this period in American history, what conversations do you hope are started, and what impact, if any, do you hope that sharing this story has on our democracy and our future?
Yeah, I think that part of the message of the film is that this is a very big problem, right? There's many layers, and the good thing is that it's a very big problem, so there's many things that can be done. There's a lot of angles to look at, and if you want to work on improving democracy, there's a lot of different conversations to have. There's a lot of different things that you can get engaged with, depending on what your interests are, what your background is. So I think that our goal, I was flattered that you that you shared that, your hope that would be seen widely before the elections. I think that's really our goal, is to reach people who may have an idea that something doesn't seem fair about the Electoral College, or why we're in this situation. The Supreme Court, why do they keep deciding things that a minority of people in the country agree on? That just doesn't seem fair fundamentally. And I think most Americans understand that in some way. So I think our goal is to spark as many conversations as we can, and then work hand in hand with organizations that can connect people who are questioning to something they can do. And that could be any number of things. Obviously, voting, helping people register to vote, working for candidates or supporting candidates that you care about, I think are great sort of things to start with, but also just being more engaged in your community. If you're a busy parent and you don't have time, maybe you're in the PA and you can help your school support immigrant students who are under threat from ICE, or trans students who are under threat from other pressures right now. if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're any profession, touches something because it's such a systemic issue. So I think that's really what we're trying to do, is to make those connections so that there's space for people to get engaged as much as possible. We're also hoping that it can be used to sort of spread outward from the network of the already converted, or the choir that already understands these issues. And we're hoping that people might think, hey, my cousin who I talked to on Thanksgiving kind of knows something isn't fair, but I think they want to learn more. Maybe I can send this film to them. That sort of thing, that it could sort of be a bridge or an opening to people who might not be that engaged, but who might benefit from understanding more and feeling empowered. Because it does, I think the thing that so much negative news and so much pressure does is it makes you feel empowered, so overwhelmed that you just tune out, and that's what they want. So I think if you understand that every little thing does matter and adds up, I think that can be great. Subscribing to a great Substack, subscribing to a real newspaper where journalists are doing good investigative work, anything like that is part of being part of making a difference. So that's our hope.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we hope that as well. And from your perspective, as someone who's been inside the industry, the consolidation of ownership across newspapers and television and film that we've seen, this consolidation of power siloed and in the control of an increasingly smaller number of people, that's leading to these challenges to the editorial independence that have affected people like a Stephen Colbert or a Jimmy Kimmel, or the people at CBS News, or even yourself and so many of your colleagues at the Washington Post. So I guess how concerned should we be about this? And I don't know that you have an answer to this, but I'll ask it. Is there anything that we as just the public could be doing to support the journalists and the people that are being challenged in this way, or swimming upstream against these forces that are trying to stifle their voices or control the messaging that the public's allowed to receive?
Well, we should be really concerned about it. I mean, truly, as we saw with, even, beginning with my situation is, there are people that own newspapers who ought to have an obligation to a free press in a democracy, and they don't. And now that they, as you said, they buy other, pieces of entertainment, and we saw that with the Colbert situation and also Jimmy Kimmel, it tends to, spread because they are all concerned about the bottom line. And what can we do? We can do what people did when Jimmy Kimmel was, when he was taken off the air. People basically spoke with their money. They canceled subscriptions. Disney doesn't like to lose money, and Disney was the one that owned ABC News. I'm sorry, the ABC network. And this is what we can do and speak at. I think the other thing also that I'd like to touch on, where Claire was talking about getting involved, we have to be critical readers. We can't just, sit back and say, I'm tired of this, because I'm tired too, frankly. But, we all have to be engaged. I mean, I have friends that have checked out on the news, and this is not the time to do it. Because, watching the film again, I hadn't seen the documentary since last year, and I watched it again. And I have to tell you, it still just gets me right there, especially the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. And in listening to Heather Cox Richardson talk about authoritarianism, I just think, we're here. It didn't take long, did it? And it's going really fast. And there is no time to waste. We all have to do something. And critical reading's one of them. Speaking up when places that we have subscriptions with, Disney Channel, whatever, we cancel them, we say something. We have to do that because we are not heading down a very good path. So I know I sound alarmist, but watching this and thinking where we are now, we should be alarmed.
I agree. I'm reminded as I was watching some of the violence that was depicted there of, there was a famous French journalist, political cartoonist, Stéphane Charbonnet, who had received death threats for his work at a satirical magazine, Charlie Hebdo, and he persevered and kept doing what cartoonists do, and you know, expressing his freedom of speech and looking at what was happening in the world at that time. And he and 11 other people at that magazine were killed when terrorists attacked their newsroom because they were unhappy with the cartoons and the messaging that magazine had been publishing. And I mean, that's terrifying that someone could, someone's life and liberty and freedoms and future could be in jeopardy because of something that they said or wrote or did as a journalist or as a satirist or a cartoonist. So, you know, it's not lost in me that, you know, there are real consequences for inaction and acceptance of these type of extremist tendencies that we see being demonstrated, you know, not just here, but throughout the world. The film that I produced, Words of War, that I think will be shown here in May around Press Freedom Day, is a film that I did with my friend Sean Penn, and it's a look at a Russian journalist, Anna Politkovskaya, who had truthfully reported what was happening in the world and was silenced. One of more than 1,500 journalists that have been killed since the start of this century pursuing the story. And no one should go to work and have to worry about, you know, death or reprisal from doing their job with integrity or telling the truth about what's going on around them. So, I mean, these issues are so important, I think, on so many levels. I do want to open it up to the audience if people have questions here. So I don't want to monopolize the conversation. We have a couple colleagues here with microphones so that our panelists who aren't in the room will be able to hear you. So if you have a question, please raise your hand so we can hand you a mic. And we'd love to get your input. I know we have a question right down here, down front. And
thank you for doing this. This is for Ann. Can you walk us through the changes that happened at the Post from the first Trump term when you had Bezos putting more money in and, you know, democracy dies in darkness? When did you see the change? What changed? And do you feel like you were the first warning shot in that slippery slope?
No, the first warning shot was the endorsement, the presidential endorsement that Bezos decided not to do. That was, I think, the first warning shot. I was obviously still at the Post then, and I was in a meeting with the opinions section by Zoom, and I can tell you people were very angry. They were very angry, and I don't think the editorial page editor had very good answers for them. So I think that's really kind of where it started. Please understand that I never worked at the Post. I worked at home, so I probably wasn't privy to a lot of things, but that's kind of where I noticed it. And then, of course, later on, you have to understand, too, that this editorial page editor came on after Fred Hyatt, who had been there for many years, unexpectedly died. And then we were without an editorial page editor for a while. And then when he was brought in, I think things started changing, at least for the opinions page. I can't speak for the news section. But yeah, it was an interesting switch because I actually was with the Post when Bezos first bought it. And I was one of them that thought it was a good idea. You know, he put a lot of money into that paper. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. So yeah, that's where we are with the Washington Post. And now, of course, it's amazing how quickly that has changed the reputation of the Post. It's just not the same, even even 20 years ago. So
shocking. Another question over here.
Hi, Ann. I have a question about.
Oh, is that on?
Hi, Ann. I have a question about whether you got any feedback from your former colleagues at the Post about the reaction that they had, because when your cartoon, that was denied or that was censored, it was so amplified by all of the cartoonists everywhere who all did their own versions of the same thing, really in support of your efforts. I'm curious about how the Post reacted, even internally, and whether you ever got any feedback from some of your former colleagues.
Well, first of all, yes, you're right. My colleagues did an amazing job of doing their own version of that cartoon, and not just in the United States, but around the world. A lot of them, most of them are better than mine, I think. So that was really great. Cartoonists tend to do that when other cartoonists are in trouble. They'll do cartoons supporting each other. So I think it's a wonderful expression that we all do for our colleagues. In terms of getting feedback, I never heard anything from the Post except, of course, what was said publicly, the statements. I did hear from a couple of my colleagues that privately, and of course, they supported me. I thought it was very funny, though. I'll have to tell you a funny story. So I was on my way overseas to go give a talk in a couple of places, and I was in my left. This is in May, and I was just checking my texts, and all of a sudden, I'm getting texts that I won the Pulitzer Prize. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know they were announcing it that day. So I'm on my way. I'm like, oh my goodness. I get to my first stop, which is in Norway, in Bergen. And and while I'm on my way there, I'm getting all these texts from my readers saying, do you know that the Post is trying to get subscriptions off your Pulitzer win? So they're like sending out emails to people saying, subscribe to the Washington Post, and here's Ann Telnaes, who just won the Pulitzer. And I'm like, hey, I don't even work there anymore. You're not going to get my work if you subscribe to the Washington Post. And it was such a difference from my Norwegian hosts. They actually had in my room already champagne and flowers and a sweet note. And I can tell you the Post didn't send them.
Yes, right here.
Just probably for Claire, the film very effectively discussed the unfortunate history of the United States with respect to race and with respect to gender. It really didn't mention religion, separation of church and state, but of course another compromise that the feds made with the incipient states was over whether religion would be a criterion for suffrage. So non-Christians couldn't vote in Maryland until 1826, in New Hampshire until 1878, a century after we fought the Brits. Any comments about that? And of course, religion is very much at the center of stuff that's been going on the last several years as well. So any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I do remember reading something about that when we were, trying to research the very beginnings of, somebody brought up whether Muslims could vote, and it was in certain states, but not others, as you point out. There were different rules everywhere. So that's fascinating. I think that the thread of Christian nationalism is foundational. I mean, it's been here since the beginning. So it's certainly an aspect of exclusion that's been useful for certain powers that be, and obviously has been very useful for the far right in terms of being a wedge issue with abortion and other things that they can sort of cling to in order to get people invested in their camp, even if it's otherwise not very helpful for them. So it's certainly a potent issue, and one that, I think that myself and many other people thought was receding in the last few decades. I think I've been surprised at how powerful a force it has been in our Supreme Court and in our laws, as we see more restrictive laws about women's rights pass all over the country. It's deeply troubling. And I certainly think that returning to a foundational respect for the separation of church and state would be hugely useful for the country. Another really important thing that we wanted to get in the film, but we couldn't really fit in, was money in politics and corruption. Basically the same forces that are causing the Post to become further right, are causing, our corporate influence on a lot of our election systems and politicians is a huge part of why all these problems persist. So that's another huge issue that, we the people are people, not corporations or anything else. So that's another sort of, if we return to the fundamental things in the Constitution, I think there is a lot of wisdom there, although there is a lot of complication that's led to where we are right now.
Thank you. I think we have one more question right here. So.
Yes, thank you. I have actually two questions for Ann, if I may. So the first question that I had was that, actually, it's to both of you. So do you think that the fact that the documentary shows what would be normally considered a more left or democratic perspective actually leads to those on the other side of the political spectrum to dismiss it and like the educational value it could bring? And then the second question to Ann specifically, I was thinking about what you just said during the discussion about kind of staying informed and trying to keep up with what's happening. And you use a lot of humor to cope, like to help others cope with the reality. And I was just wondering if you have any other kind of ideas how to stay sane with being disillusioned with the reality that we're facing. Because for me personally, as a young person, it's very overwhelming a lot of the times to see what's happening, and it's making me very anxious about the future as well. And at some point, you just want to switch off the internet and just not see what's happening. So yeah, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I actually taught a class a couple of years ago, and I had to talk quite a bit to my students because they were anxious. This was during COVID, so of course that was a different situation. But I mean, it's just, that's just go for a walk, do other things. I mean, I'm not telling you to follow the news 24/7. I just want you to, when you do keep up on the news and know what's going on, to just do it in a critical way. And be aware, but you have to live your life, and just especially for young people, get enough exercise. If you're a student, get enough sleep, and just do that on the side. It's just kind of self-preservation. But I just don't want people to check out. And it's not. It's everyone that's doing this, where they just don't even want to deal with it. It's not just young people. It's older people. But we can't right now. It's a very, very important time to be engaged, because as we've seen in the last year, things have just escalated, and I don't know if it's going to stop. And now we're in a war, or not a war, whatever you want to hear this day or the next day. But you have to make sure that you are up on the news, because the midterms are coming up, and that is going to be, I feel, that it's making me anxious just thinking about it, because it's kind of like January 6th. It's going to be a very pivotal point, because I can guarantee you this guy is not going to concede losing the House. I've already watched him twice now, once to a prayer breakfast and once to the Republican group just recently last week. And he wants to make sure that he retains majority, because if he doesn't, he's going to be impeached. Yeah,
I'd love to just let that linger on that sentence. I think it's a great place to end, actually, if we can. I do want to thank, both of our panelists for being here and sharing this amazing film, Democracy Under Siege. I also want to thank French in Motion and NYU for hosting this and this whole series, Democracy on Screen, I guess, is our series here. And I think, these types of conversations and stories are so important. So thank you, Leticia, and everybody, and all of you for being here and participating in this. I'll turn it over to you for the last word. But another round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to both of you for taking the time, for being here with us, even virtually. That's really very important topic, and we are very grateful for that. And I also want to mention that this film is part of a larger series that is called Draw for Change, which was actually produced with, like Claire said at the beginning, by a lot of European countries. And it features other cartoonists in the world, which is why Anne is here for the US perspective, but you think that she's along with people from Egypt, Syria, Russia. I don't know how it felt for you to be featured in a series that is talking about places where cartoonists are challenging the power like they do always. Is certainly very empowering as well.
Yeah, it is. It's really, I mean, those women that are, if you get a chance to see the rest of the series, you know, they don't have a First Amendment right protecting them. They are the brave ones. It's not me, it's them. And they're very well made. And if you can see them, please do.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you for being here. I want to say also that Democracy on Screen is coming back every month. So on Wednesday, April 15th, we'll have a film called Coconut Generation, a very great documentary by Alain Cassandra. And because we are in a university, I especially encourage the students in the room not to miss the film. It tells the story of Nigerian students who turn a simple campus film club into a space for critical thinking, political debate, and eventually a movement connected to the End SARS protests against police brutality. So that's the engagement we want. Come on, kids. And on Monday 4, just after World Press Freedom Day, we'll present Wars of War, which was produced by Mark and tells the remarkable story of the Russian journalist Alla Polinskovskaya, sorry for the pronunciation, who paid of her life for wanting a freedom press. And thank you very much again for a great evening. Thank you to NYU and to Tom McIntyre here from the John Brademas Center for giving us this platform and for being an amazing partner, and have a good night. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, if I could, thank you everyone for organizing. This was fantastic. I'm not sure if we had a chance to show our QR code, but we'd love for everyone here to stay connected with the film. So our website is democracyundersiegedoc.org. If you want to go there, you can sign up for our email list, learn more about when our next screenings will be. We would love for everyone here to stay connected and let us know if you have an idea where you think this film should be seen. Let's make it happen. It can be anywhere from a book club to a church to a nationwide organization. So we'd love to stay connected. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Claire. And when we have a little visual that can direct you to Kinema as well, where the film is going to be shown for more people to see it.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.